Okay, we're going to get started. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Julie Chabdi, the Associate Director of Health and Wellbeing Program with the WorkWell Center and your host for today. Welcome to EatWell Bites, sponsored by the USC Healthy Campus EatWell Subcommittee. Today's topic is dairy and milk alternatives. Where do you get your calcium? Throughout today's session, you're welcome to use the chat to make comments or ask questions specific to today's topic. And at the end, we'll have some exciting announcements as well as some time for Q&A. We'll ask you to fill out an evaluation form and we'll also have a raffle prize. Please make sure you're muted to minimize any background noise. I'd like to thank the EatWell co-leads, Professor Carrie Kreutzer with the USD Leonard Davis School of Gerontology and Keck School of Medicine, and Lindsay Pine, dining dietitian with USC Hospitality. On behalf of the Healthy Campus EatWell Subcommittee, we're excited to share that we're continuing EatWell Bites, monthly bite-sized nutrition education webinars occurring the first Thursday of every month. The goal of the series is to provide you with practical tips, hands-on demonstrations, resources, and support for you to improve your health and quality of life through nutrition and healthy eating habits. So over the next 30 minutes, we'll be sharing our expertise around this very important topic, as well as resources for you to take away. I'd like to also thank the entire EatWell subcommittee, who's been working really hard to create a health promoting food environment here at USC. And as always, feel free to stretch, stand, move during today's session in whatever way that feels best for you. And now I'd like to introduce our presenter for today. It's our pleasure to welcome back Lisa Statner, who's presented for us in the past for other similar sessions. Lisa is the outpatient oncology dietitian with clinical nutrition. And with that, I will turn it over to Lisa.
Thank you, Julie. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I thought this was a great topic that was presented to me since there's so much confusion about plant milks and dairy milk and which is better. And I want us to start, I think we have a little poll, if you guys wouldn't mind just taking that real quickly, just so we can get a feel for how many people consume cow's milk, dairy milk, plant milk, or a combination thereof. And one of the things I wanted to take a look at was I pulled up some, oh, wow, look at this. A lot of half and half here. So, all right, excellent. So everybody, it looks like most people here are familiar with plant and dairy milks. Excellent. And we'll share those. All right, so I wanted to start with just some interesting statistics as far as milk consumption in the US. Now, what's interesting is that milk production in the US has actually been steadily increasing over the years. And really, we started tracking it back in 1972. So it doesn't go back as far as maybe we'd like, but that's when we started tracking milk consumption in particular. But dairy, and I'm talking about dairy or cow's milk. So production has gone up, but drinkable dairy milk has actually gone down, the consumption. And you can see the bar graph on the left there compared to 1981 to 2021. But what's really interesting is although we're drinking less milk, we're actually consuming more yogurt, butter, and cheese. And even ice cream I would throw in there as far as the frozen dairy. The other graph is interesting. And so that's really comparing the consumption of dairy milk compared to plant milks. And you can see the spike in the middle. And what's interesting about that is that was during the COVID time when we couldn't go out to restaurants and everybody was cooking at home. So there was definitely a sharp spike during those times. But again, compared to the plant milks, you can see the dairy milk, the blue line there. We do drink more of the dairy milk or the cow's milk, but you can see almond milk really is running sort of a close second, a little drop there. So I thought that was interesting. So let's go on to the next slide, please, if we're able to. All right, there we go. All right, so with this rise in the use of plant milks, and I'll get to the different types in just a minute, but what are the main reasons? Why stop drinking cow's milk? So there's a couple main, there are many reasons, but these are some of the main reasons. So perceived health benefits, that the plant milk is better than cow's milk. Increase awareness of lactose intolerance or milk allergies or the allergies to the protein, especially the caseins or the whey. And maybe not an awareness, but possibly more people actually are lactose intolerant or allergic to the milk proteins. A lot of people are following a vegan or a vegetarian diet now, and sustainability is another issue for a lot of people. And next slide, please. All right, so what are the most common types of plant milks? And I find this confusing myself, and I'm sure I left out a few things. Definitely almond is number one. Um, Soy, coconut, flaxseed, macadamia, oat. Oat is very popular now. Rice was really one of the first plant milks that was being used. Hemp milk, pea milk, which is becoming very popular. And often you see the pea milk in a lot of the vegetarian protein supplements. So for instance, like an Ensure type of drink that is lactose free, and cashew milk. And again, I'm sure there's more if anyone wants to throw in the chat any other types of plant milks that you've seen. But this is what I see when I go to the grocery store and I see all these options. And most people, I'm sure like me, we don't have a lot of time to sift through every single label. So hopefully we can clarify a few things here, and we can go to the next slide, please. So what are the things we want to consider? And we still want to talk about the calcium because that's a big issue, but there's a lot of other things, reasons why people are choosing particular milks. But I just wanted to put up a few things for you guys to think about as far as considerations in choosing which is the best one. And I think that's one of the biggest concerns, is which really is healthier for me. I think cost is always the most important thing, because if something is not affordable for you, you won't be drinking it on a regular basis. Um, and I see Mick has some good comments there. Sorry, we'll get to Mick's in just a minute. Um, Use. How are you going to be using the plant milk or the dairy milk? Is it something that you're going to be drinking on a regular basis and you want to use that as your main source of protein? Are you just going to use it for that dish on occasion? Are you going to use it in cereal every day? So I think that especially with the cost of food these days, we don't want 4 different types of milk in our refrigerator, right? And that really leads into shelf stability, because we end up having too many. And even in a household, we might have one person that's allergic to perhaps nuts, another person is allergic to lactose. And we really want to minimize the many types of milks that we have in the refrigerator. Um, Macronutrient content. So this is really one of the key considerations. We have protein, carbohydrates, fat, and fiber. Now, milk by nature is a better source of protein than most of the plant milks. So to give you an idea, a cup of regular milk is approximately 8 grams, where a lot of the plant milks, say almond milk, is only about 1 or 2 grams. So a pretty significant difference. You might see higher carbohydrate loads, like with an oat milk, or even if they're adding in flavors, vanilla, chocolate, something along those lines, that will bump up your carbohydrate content. And then some of the milks, like some of the pea protein milks, they might add some oils to that. And so really keep in mind what might be added or what is naturally occurring there based on your needs. Now, the micronutrient content, this is where the calcium comes in. Now, milk naturally has approximately 300 milligrams of calcium. And luckily, many of the nut milks that are on the market today, they're actually fortifying. So when you say fortify, that means you're adding a nutrient to a food product that is not naturally occurring. So vitamin D milk is fortified with D, right? Or some of these plant milks, they will fortify with calcium. So that's the really good news because most of these milks are really an inferior, um, have an inferior supply of calcium. And so that's been a big change in the last few years as far as the different milks. And then sodium is also another micronutrient you might want to consider. A lot of the cow's milk is a little bit higher in sodium for some people. So again, we're always looking at what are your needs. And, I will just say while we're on the topic of calcium here for a moment, many people are at risk for osteoporosis. They have osteoporosis, and their doctors are recommending a calcium supplement. And really, what we're finding is that calcium food sources are much better absorbed than just the calcium and vitamin D supplement. So, another reason maybe to sway on the side of a dairy milk if you can tolerate it. Preservatives are often added to some of the nut milks, emulsifiers and stabilizers. So kind of the trend that happened that I saw with a lot of the nut milks was that they were pretty pristine when they first came out. Nuts, water, salt, and that's it. And then as they became more popular, a lot of these preservatives, emulsifiers, and stabilizers were added in. And examples of these would be carrageenan is one, which comes from a pretty natural source. It comes from seaweed, but there is some concern that there's a cancer risk with that. Some of the other gums, the xanthan gum, the guar gum again, comes from a natural source. But some of these gums, there's a lot of concern that they can disrupt the gut microbiota. And we know that a healthy gut is key for good health and reducing inflammation in the body. So a lot of concern with these additives. Now, one glass of a nut milk likely is not going to cause a lot of problems unless you do have some allergies to these. And I will say a lot of people are allergic to guar gum, and I've seen that quite a bit. But eliminating these as much as possible in the overall diet. One glass of a nut milk that has these likely not a problem. But look at your overall diet. Are you eating a lot of ultra processed foods that maybe have a lot of these, or you're consuming a huge amount of, say, a certain brand that might have a lot of these preservatives and stabilizers? And what is your overall long-term consumption of those? And that's really the safety profile that's not quite known at this time. Um, and then again, as I mentioned, are they adding sugars? Are they adding flavors? And then again, just your personal tolerance and allergies. Now, just to address very quickly to Mick, he asked about the A2 milks. I have not seen A1, and what he's referring to is a lot of people are allergic to the milk proteins, and so that would be the casein and whey. Milk, cow's milk is made up of 80% casein, and there's two types. There's 1 and 2, and then the other 20% of milk is comprised of whey, and you probably see a lot of whey proteins and things like this to add to protein shakes. Now, I have not seen A1 on the market. I've only seen A2, and it's in most grocery stores. You probably didn't notice it because you weren't looking for it, and it does say A2. And a lot of people that think that they're lactose intolerant actually are protein intolerant, and they tolerate the A2 milk very well also. So to answer your question, Mick, I have not seen the A1. And if we could go to the next slide. So just real quick, I wanted to show you general comparison, and I really didn't want to get into brands in this talk. And at the end, I do have some resources for you. So you'll see I just sort of randomly picked whole milk label, oat milk label, and the almond milk label. And just to show you some of the things that you could look for, you will see calcium. Now this extra creamy almond milk does have a nice dose of calcium right there, whereas the oat milk does not. And then compared to the whole milk. However, with the almond milk, you can see there's quite a few additives on there that maybe you don't want all of that, along with some added sugars. And at the very bottom, under the total carbohydrate, where you see that you'll see total sugars, those are naturally occurring. But then when you get to the includes added sugars, that's the added sugar, like some of the flavorings that they might be adding. And you can see that with the whole milk. It's naturally occurring lactose sugars, 12 grams, but zero added. And then if we could go to the next slide, please. All right. And just to direct you guys over to the chat, we do have a raffle today, so please enter that. That would be great. And then Claudia asks, is unsweetened plant-based milk for diabetics? Um, you know, it's all sort of depends on a lot of factors, but generally I would say an unsweetened plant-based milk would be better if you're drinking plant-based milk. But the protein in the whole milk, if you're a whole milk drinker, usually kind of balances things out. Now, I just grabbed these prices, just talking about cost comparison off of the Ralph's website for Los Angeles a couple days ago. So I just wanted to show you why and how cost consideration can be important. Now, these are just half gallons. And you can see there is a bigger difference with the oat milk compared to the regular dairy milk and the almond milk. So if you're buying milk, if you're buying a gallon a couple times a week, or if you have a large family, if it's just for yourself, you really want to look at those cost considerations as well. And then if we can go to the next slide, please. All right, so this just kind of is a recap of what I talked about, some things to look at as far as the plant-based milk and compared to the dairy milk. So definitely look at the protein, vitamin D, calcium, potassium in some cases, and even the saturated fat in the whole milk. Generally, you'd want to go with the lower fat milk, a 2% or 1%. Look for the added sugars. Are they adding a lot of added sugars? Some general guidelines for added sugars would be try and keep it to no more than 2 to 4 grams in a serving of added sugars in really any product. So which is better? And, surprisingly, I can't say that one or the other is better at this point because, probably a year ago, I would have said the overall nutritional profile is better in the cow's milk. But really, now, because of the fortification, the increased protein, and increased calcium and vitamin D, and a lot of the nut milks, they're almost equivalent. Now, there is a little bit of controversy with dairy milk that I would like to address really quickly. So I know there's a lot said, especially on social media, that dairy milk is inflammatory. And surprisingly, it is not. And in many cases, it's either neutral. So we're talking about a healthy individual, the effect on the gut, and the inflammation is either neutral or actually cow's milk can be anti-inflammatory. And I know a lot of people are going to be upset with that, but the research really is there. And feel free to email me if you'd like me to send the studies to you, because that was quite a surprise to me as well. But many people have allergies to the milk sugars and the milk protein. And fortunately now we have some really great alternatives to that. So I do have a couple links for you guys. One of the reviews really gets brand specific and looking at the different brands that are available as far as the plant milks go. And so that'll help you make some better choices, I think. And then just another review from EatWell by another dietitian, just to kind of review the different milks that are available. And I think that was my last slide, unless, does anyone else have any other questions or?
Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you. That was really informative and
Thank
presented
you.
in such a simple way for us to understand. Feel free to put your questions in the chat. We do have about 9 minutes, and I'll start off with a question that Matt had. He would like to know your thoughts on non-homogenized milk. He heard that that's much more natural and healthier, more of a whole food, but it seems to be hard to find in stores or online. So, what are your thoughts on non-homogenized milk?
That's a really excellent question that I don't think I can answer for you because I have not seen non-homogenized. So just for everybody that wants to know what that means. So we have pasteurized, which means the milk is brought up to temperature to kill the bacteria, the molds, the fungus. And then homogenized is actually pressure that's put on the milk to emulsify it because you have fats and you have water and, water and oil don't mix. So it's just a way of emulsifying the milk is what homogenation is. So, I don't know. Let me know if you find any because I have not ever seen that. So I apologize.
No problem, Lisa. I know we get some questions like this sometimes. If we find an answer or if anyone else knows, feel free to chime in.
Mhm.
I'll move on to the next question. What is in cow's milk would contribute to acne? Does A2 milk lack that?
So A2 milk just means I had mentioned there's two types of casein, A1 and A2. So the A2 milk lacks the A1. I don't know as far as acne goes. I know sodium for some people can exacerbate acne. But I don't know. That's a good question for a dermatologist, to be honest.
Mhm. And then this person is asking that the doctor prescribed vitamin D. They are low on vitamin D. So besides milk, what else could be taken naturally? Also, should other vitamins be taken with vitamin D?
Mhm. So vitamin D is a fat soluble vitamin, right? Which is why it works so nicely in milk, especially if you have some fat in your milk. Um, but sunlight, in small amounts is probably honestly your best source of vitamin D. Some of the fish, especially salmon, you can get a good source of vitamin D from that. Flax, you can get a bit of vitamin D in there. So, but interestingly enough, most people in sunny California are deficient in vitamin D. And most people, and this is not medical advice, you really need to talk to your doctor about it and have your vitamin D levels checked. Do need to supplement on that.
Okay. Is shelf stable cow's milk nutritionally different than refrigerated fresh?
So that's a good question. So I think what you're asking is about the ultra heat treated. So regular pasteurized cow's milk is heat treated. And so it's about 15 seconds of about 248 degrees that it's subjected to. Now the shelf stable, so sometimes you'll see cartons of milk in the middle of the aisles, and I think that's what you mean. Those are ultra heat treated. So over 300 degrees for a much shorter period of time. Just, I believe it's about 5 seconds. So yes, any of the water soluble nutrients, especially B12, some of the B vitamins. Now, milk doesn't normally have a huge amount of those. So like the calcium as an example, the vitamin D should be maintained pretty well. So I think it can be a good alternative.
Question about is full fat milk better? I'm assuming better than non or low fat, or if not, just please the person just clarify what you're asking.
Um, no, that's a that's a good question because I get that a lot.
Yeah.
Um, there's some controversy on that one, and it has to do with the saturated fats. So some people are all in for saturated fats again. Everything old is new. Just like I used to push only egg whites, and embarrassingly, and now I'm saying the whole egg. So I kind of like to go with the more conservative recommendation of 1 or 2% milk just to sort of be safe.
Great, great. Well, those are all the questions we have, unless any more pop in, Lisa. Thank you so much. You really know your milks.
Thank you for inviting me and thank you for all the great questions. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I just have a couple of announcements if you all can stay on. We are continuing Eat Well Bites through spring of next year, so very excited for that. And we will be planning our topics for spring. So if you have any thoughts, feel free to send our way. Don't forget to check out our Eat Well meals, and these are meals developed with nutrient-rich ingredients in mind, as well as flavor and balance. And they can be found in the center of UPC campus as well as HSC. Just look for the little Eat Well icons on the dining app and kiosks. We're also putting together an Eat Well cookbook. So if you have any recipes you want to submit, we have a link to submit, and we're looking for cultural diversity in recipes, as well as just anything that's quick and simple, maybe a family favorite that you want to share. And on our website, we have a variety of over 100 videos showing you various breakfast, lunch, dinner, and snack and dessert ideas. And they're short videos with recipes. And then finally, we have our nutrition guides. So we have guides on our website that provide recommendations on healthier dining options at USC, ways to coordinate healthier meetings, so ways that participants can have healthy options, stay physically active, and also sustainable, ways to eat at USC Village, and then finally shopping at Trader Joe's and planning meals with Trader Joe's since it's really close by to all of us, right across the street for many of us at the UPC campus. Here's a look at the Eat Well Bites session for the rest of fall. Our next one is September 5th, and it's all about inflammation and how diet can help or harm. October 3rd is around creating healthy eating habits, how to make your nutrition habits stick. And November 7th, we'll be dishing out the truth, unmasking diet myths. And you can register for these sessions with the link that Suzanne has put in the chat. And with that, I'd like to ask you all to fill out the evaluation form. You can scan the QR code or click on the link, and we'll also be sending out the link with our post-webinar communication. And with that, I'd like to just make sure that all questions have been answered. There was a comment about fish allergies. I don't know if that's a question or just a comment, or if anyone wants to, or if Anne, if you want to elaborate on your comment on fish allergies.
I think it was a recommendation for a future topic.
Okay, got it. Okay, well, with that, I will stop sharing and we will do the raffle. And we are raffling off a gift card to Amazon. So you can purchase some milk or something for yourself. Roxanne Roman, congratulations. We will be in touch with you to coordinate delivery of your gift card. And with that, thank you so much, everyone. Thanks for being here today, and we will see you next month. And spread the word to others, other faculty and staff, and even students too. We welcome them. Thank you all.
Thank you.